Welcome to the Intrazone Roadmap Pit Stop September 2022 edition. This is a bonus monthly show that answers that burning question in your mind. What's rolling out now for SharePoint and related technology in Microsoft 365? I'm Mark Cashman, Senior Product Manager on the Microsoft 365 marketing team, here to help set that ongoing record straight. This month, I talk with Sesha Mani, a Principal Group Product Manager on the SharePoint team who is focused on all the goodness for SharePoint and OneDrive that IT pros can be joyous about, to do all those things to manage and control their collaborative content management environments. You'll hear Sesha talk about what we're doing to make it easier to more granularly protect your sites, improvements to multiple profiles in Edge, user-defined permissions for Office files, and protected PDF support. A lot of depth there to cover with Sesha. Beyond the breadth of new capabilities for SharePoint admins, we'll focus on everything that landed this month, a few related items, and the always fun teasers looking into next month. Okay, it's time to kick back, get informed about all the tech that rolled out in September 2022. We're going to start where we always do, with employee engagement, all those features and new capabilities that when you want to communicate across the enterprise, or at least one to many, that's employee engagement. And we want your employee engagement to be top notch. So in the month of September, we brought a new culture site template. This is the Hispanic Heritage Month site template. We are introducing diversity and inclusion cultural site templates. This is our second cultural template that we're delivering, and it celebrates the Hispanic Heritage Month. There's a lot of content and structure that appears by default with this template to save you time, and all can be further customized to meet the unique needs of your organization. So from out of the box with the template, site features like you'll get a beautiful home page with a unique theme to the Hispanic Heritage Month. They'll have a distinct page template that helps you create pages with that same notion of supporting and promoting Hispanic Heritage Month. There are pre-populated pieces of content, web parts that are pre-populated and configured so that it supports the best way that you can, out of the box, already get started with promoting and supporting Hispanic heritage. And because all of SharePoint is this way, but the templates are nothing shy of the truth for this, it's all mobile ready. This new site template is a great way to support and promote Hispanic Heritage Month in your organization. Next, the ability to configure navigation links when you open a new tab, and to have this be a little bit configurable, not just one size fits all. With this update, you can configure how you would like your navigation links to open. You'll have the option to be able to choose to open in the same tab or in a new tab for your site, your hub, for the global navigation, wherever it lies. You get to choose more granularly how each item in the navigation actually opens up and where it opens up. There's a really nice help article that talks about the customization of everything you can do with navigation these days, and this just adds that next element of choice. So let's move from managing how links open as tabs to how you can more granularly manage access to sites. This new feature is called Manage Site Access based on sensitivity labels. With this update, administrators will be able to use conditional access policies and associated sensitivity labels to require additional user authentication for accessing sensitive SharePoint sites. That's when the user's context does not meet the requirements of the site. You might want additional authentication for accessing certain sensitive sites. For example, when a user visits a highly sensitive site labeled confidential, you might want to enforce a step-up authentication with granular policies such as multi-factor authentication, MFA, when the user's context does not meet the access requirements of the site. Once an admin configures the sensitivity label with authentication context, when a user applies a sensitivity label, the associated granular contextual and conditional policies are automatically enforced. As you would expect with this one, there's a great documentation help article titled Manage Site Access Based on Sensitivity Labels, and you can find that out on Microsoft Docs. This is also where I'll pause because we're going to talk to Sesha about this particular feature in depth in just a little bit. So, switching gears to Microsoft Viva. First component, Microsoft Viva, the Viva Learning cards are available for the Viva Connections Dashboard. Viva Learning is an enterprise learning and training experience that acts as a one-stop solution for all of the learning needs of your organization. And in comparison, in connection to that, Viva Connections gives everyone a personalized destination to discover relevant news, conversations, and the tools they need to complete daily tasks. Both Viva experiences can be accessed on mobile and desktop devices in Microsoft Teams and are a part of the Microsoft Viva suite. Now, you'll be able to integrate Viva Learning and Viva Connection experiences by using the Viva Learning card on the Viva Connections Dashboard. This new feature will enable users to track their learning assignments directly within Viva Connections. When users interact with the Viva Learning card, they'll be able to complete learning courses within the flow of work inside of Microsoft Teams. Again, a lot of great documentation on how you can configure these cards and how they flow into Viva Connections once established as an element within Viva Learning. Now, this is a Viva++. If you didn't catch all of the activity that we put out there on September 22nd of 2022, there was a lot of 922 action that I just want to enumerate and point you where you can go read a lot more in depth. Microsoft disclosed a ton of Microsoft Viva news to further empower and energize employees worldwide. Like I said, I'm just going to list out a few of the highlights and encourage you to check out the blog by our Viva General Manager, Seth Patton, that outlines all of this goodness. So hold on to your Viva hats. Here are the highlights in one Viva breath. Viva Goals Update. Introducing Viva Pulse. Leadership Corner in Viva Engage, Viva Amplify, a new app, Viva Learning and LinkedIn Learning coming together, Answers in Viva, People in Viva, and a whole lot more. So I encourage you to check out Seth's blog and let me know which ones resonated most with your own employee experience. Now, let us switch over, put our IT Pro hats on or our IT Pro interested hats on, and get ready to hear a little bit more from Sesha Mani. That is right. It is time to dive a little deeper into the IT goodness released in September and recently. We'll switch gears and chat with Sesha Mani from the OneDrive and SharePoint admin team. So now we're going to literally dive under the covers where you find maybe that security blanket, literally talking about security for OneDrive, for SharePoint, and its influence, of course, with security around Teams. Anywhere you put your content that has that content service driven by SharePoint, that is who we're talking to. We're not talking to SharePoint today. We're talking to Sesha Mani, who is on the SharePoint team focused on all things security. And Sesha, welcome to the IntraZone.
Thank you, Mark. I'm glad to be here.
I appreciate your time, and this one in particular has got a lot of moving parts and pieces, so it's going to be really important, I think, for our audience to get from you clarity about what it is that you design and deliver through the security and access team, and obviously how it applies to their content in SharePoint and beyond. I wanted to just start by hearing you describe the approach that Microsoft takes, that you and your team, when you think about designing and implementing a capability or lots of capabilities for people to be able to better control access to content and the sensitivities and how they might design workspaces and places where they put things so they adhere to whatever their governance is and how they want to have access and sensitivity based on what the content itself actually is. Can you just talk a little bit about the design and intent of building that capability for our customers?
Yeah, absolutely, Mark. I'm glad to. When we think about security, compliance, and management of all content that you have in Microsoft 365, we look at, I would say, three major pillars. The first one is obviously users, because users are the ones that are accessing the content. So we think about what level of security and compliance we need to put together to ensure users have the secure access. And nowadays, it's a zero trust model is the mantra that we use to ensure that all the check and balances are in place before giving access to the given user. The second major pillar we also look at is around the apps and devices that the users are using to gain access to the corporate data. For example, whether the user comes from managed device or unmanaged device, or they are using a trusted app or not trusted app, Are they coming from the IP addresses that the IT department has blessed or not? So we look at that aspect of, devices, apps, and the network locations as well as a primary pillar. The last one I would say is something that we recently also started looking into is the life cycle of their journey, be it the SharePoint site, what's the life cycle of that looks like versus a user session. What is the life cycle of that user session will look like to access the content? So those are the three major pillars, Mark, that we typically look at when we think about our strategy for security and compliance and management.
Yeah, I mean, it's a robust approach to information protection, and it gives a lot of default capabilities. People should know that by default, content and access to it and working with it, collaborating on it is by default very protected in the cloud. And it's something that Microsoft takes very seriously. And for those customers that want to take it even further, whether it's a particular piece of content or a particular group that's working with all of their content, or just when things are going, like you mentioned, through the life cycle, there may be a point in time when it's highly sensitive, and then a little bit later on, maybe a little bit less sensitive. Always internal and always under the control of the customer. And you mentioned the notion of the individual, and that's obviously very important on what do they have access to and how can they protect their content until they want to share it a little bit more broadly. I know we had one feature, and I just wanted to sneak it in here. It's not necessarily the what shipped in September, but it was the ability for people to sign in with multiple accounts from a Microsoft 365 perspective. Do you mind just sharing what that is and kind of the scenario around what that actually makes easier?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, that was one of my favorite features, and I use it on an everyday basis, actually, which I believe every one of us has this notion of having a commercial account, which is you're working in a company, as well as perhaps having a consumer account, perhaps for your son's education institution or some community service that you do. As part of that, you log into the consumer account. Typically today, in order to switch accounts, you have to sign out and then sign back in a given browser session. Well, you don't really need to do that anymore. In Microsoft 365, profile experience itself, we're now bringing in the concept of account switching. So right there in the top right corner, as you see your photo there, you can just click on it, and then it will show you all the accounts that you can switch. Perhaps in your work account, as well as your consumer account, you may have multiple work accounts, right? Because perhaps you are a consultant working with multiple companies. So you can just right there from the profile experience, switch to a different account. No need to sign out or sign back in. And this is one of the most popular features. And it's shipped, as you said, Mark, a few months ago. I just wanted to highlight that the capability exists, and you can just take advantage of it in your tenancy as well.
Yeah, and from an information protection perspective, we should also be really clear. It maintains all the boundaries of when you switch from work to a life account. So if you're signed into work and then you switch over to life and vice versa, you're not exposing anything differently. You're just making it easier for yourself to switch from where you're doing work, where you're doing things that maybe are more home and personal. I also know, and again, I feel like we're sneaking in a few things, but it's really nice. There's a lot that the security teams do across apps and specific to SharePoint and OneDrive. It's an ongoing investment area. I know that there are 2 recent private previews that if we raise awareness here, I know you need people to lean in and try these things. So we want to raise awareness. But maybe we can talk about just real quickly the 2 private previews that are relevant in the IP space.
Yeah, absolutely, Mark. I think the 2 that are relevant in the information protection space, the first one is protected PDF support in SharePoint and OneDrive. So the scenario here would be you have a PDF document that is labeled and encrypted. And today the behavior is when you upload such a document, we call it protected PDF documents to SharePoint Online or OneDrive. We call it bricked, meaning it's not useful. You cannot actually do governance policies on those PDF files. You cannot open those PDF files and so on. Well, we hear your feedback, and I'm glad to let you know that now we are ready to open up a private preview for bringing the first-class experience for these protected PDFs in SharePoint and OneDrive in such a way that you can open those PDFs right in SharePoint and OneDrive, as well as governance policies like DLP, data loss prevention policy, or e-discovery can be run against the content in those PDF files as well. So that's one private preview. We are now taking up nominations for that. The second one is very relevant, very similar to that, is the what we call the user-defined permissions in the Office files. Now, this is a scenario that I think many of you are perhaps already using in Office today, which is you create a document and just in your desktop, perhaps you have saved it in the desktop, and now you share it, let's say, between Sesha and Mark are the only one can have access to it. Now you upload that document to SharePoint and OneDrive because you want to take advantage of all the compliance and security capabilities that's there in the cloud, right? Well, it used to be these kind of user-defined permission documents are not recognized in SharePoint and OneDrive. That means you cannot co-author them, you cannot run governance policies on these user-defined permission Office files. Now we are able to recognize these files, and you will be able to co-author right there in the SharePoint and OneDrive experience. Not only that, admins will love this. You can do governance policies on these files as well. So this is one other key capability that we are taking nominations for private preview as well. I encourage you to sign up for these private previews.
Excellent. Well, if you've got links where people can go to sign up, I will put them both in the show notes and the companion blog so that people can get those links and get signed up for those private previews. And just so you know, I'm going to make a small investment in, I think, a new IP t-shirt that we'll sell maybe somewhere randomly. And it's going to have your quote, "No one likes a bricked PDF."
Perfect. Perfect, Mark. I love that.
I think that'll make a nice t-shirt. Anyway, so we want to now get into the depths of what actually shipped in September. There's one particular feature that I'd love to just get your take on and a little bit more behind the design and how this is a feature, a benefit to IT pros. The feature is manage site access based on sensitivity label. I talked a little bit about the 101, what it is. Can you give us a little bit of a better insight in what it is and the benefits that IT will find when using it?
The way to think about that feature is really conditional access policy for SharePoint sites. As you know, and perhaps as you've been using it in your tenancy, conditional access policy is something that you configure in Azure Active Directory, and you can say only when users come from managed device, they can access, SharePoint and OneDrive. It's a very fine-grained capability that we have today. Well, with this capability of conditional access policy for SharePoint sites and teams, we are bringing it very close granularly to the SharePoint site level and team level itself. Let me give you a simple scenario. Imagine that you have a top secret SharePoint site. You want to ensure no matter who's accessing the site, when they are accessing it, you want to ensure they always run through a multi-factor authentication before gaining access to that particular top secret site. Totally makes sense, right? Because you want to protect that as much as you can. With this capability, conditional access policy, you can now configure at the given SharePoint site level itself. So the user can be productive when they are working in other SharePoint sites. No barriers for them. But the moment you go and click on trying to access a document in this site or in a SharePoint home experience, you want to click on this site, only at that time, the user is now prompted for additional credentials. Why? Because the site is top secret and it has this granular conditional access policy requirement attached to it as well. Many customers love this feature. And as you can imagine, if you have your crown jewels, you want to bring it along to SharePoint and OneDrive, well, there you go. You now have a capability to protect those crown jewels just when they are trying to access those crown jewels SharePoint sites. So that's what this feature is, Mark.
I got it. The MFA part helps me solidify for some reason, if people aren't leveraging MFA in a broader fashion, that it would then be required absolutely without access given until they go through the right steps, which would be set up with that multi-factor step of authentication, which is really important. And it's really nice to see it coming to, like you said, the granular level of a site, which can be a very nice container, which could be an easier way for people to manage and control the content, but at the same time have a distinct trigger for when people are trying to access it. Very cool. And I think your shorter title is better going forward. Nudge, nudge. But thank you for picking that one apart and just being very clear. That is what's rolling out now. And I believe that's in public preview now. Is that the stage that it's in?
That's correct, Mark. It is in public preview so that anybody can actually try this out. Yes.
Excellent. Well, let's round it out. We've kind of covered a lot, maybe a little bit more than we normally do, because there's just been a lot that you focus on, and certainly having you here to shine a little light on some of the benefits of what is new in the IP world. I know Ignite is just around the corner, truly within weeks now. And that's great. I know you have some things planned that we've been working on together in your team to get that out at the right time. But just as a last thought, when people think of this space, information protection for SharePoint, OneDrive teams, how do you qualify what the investment areas are for where people know where we're putting effort and resources to?
Yeah, absolutely, Mark. And, without getting into a lot of details regarding our Ignite announcement, which is in a few weeks, I'll tease apart in, I would say, three major areas where we are investing. The first one is continue to be investing in the access policies. I think this is the area it's continue to have a lot of opportunities as well as many scenarios that we'd like to go after and address them. I touched on one key feature announcement today, Mark, which is the control access policy at the SharePoint site level. So you can see how we are taking it to the next level in bringing new capabilities in the access policy space. The second one I would say is around the insights. We also look at how do we bring in access insights or sites insights to you so that, for example, if you have a million sites, but you really want to know what are the top 100 sites that you should care about. So bringing insights capabilities for you so that you can make the best judgment of right policies are set for the important sites in your organization. And then the third aspect I would call out is the life cycle aspect, which is a site life cycle. How does the site starts and then going into perhaps a very active phase of the site, and then perhaps later on after a year or two, the site is becoming inactive and you want to do something about it. So we are thinking about the life cycle aspect of the content as well. So I'll leave you with that three major investment areas that we are thinking of.
It's a lot to chew on, and I know the life cycle part, just as a last thought, is something that I hear a lot. How can they enable the self-service, people to be able to create their own spaces, but then from an IT perspective, to be able to control both access and the life cycle of when that is no longer needed? What do you do with the content? What do you do with access to that space? How do you, bring things to a closure in a way that's meets their requirements as far as governance and control? So thank you for your time, Sesha, both in working with your team to continuously design and deliver these things. Thank you for being on the Intrazone, and thank you for the t-shirt idea.
Absolutely, Mark. And as always, it was a pleasure talking to you. And thank you very much for having me in this Intrazone. Thank you.
Sesha is such a wonderful IT advocate. He and his team listen to and read all feedback. I've literally almost clearly peered over his shoulder while he was doing it. And I've worked with Sesha long enough to know that he really means to listen and then switch that back into actual digestible features. And with these recent features, I hope you see that thoughtful approach that he and his team take to give you the tools and capability to more finely tune how you can control and access and govern who can view or take action or do a lot of things within SharePoint by under the guise of how you program the system. The decision and execution of who can access what and when are now more than ever in your hands. And with that, let's turn to talk about teamwork, that other side of the coin where it's a one-to-one, one-to-few working environment where you really are collaborating, creating, and at least keeping everybody informed that you work with on a day-to-day, if not a week-to-week, month-to-month basis. First action, activity, idea, item of teamwork, new activity column in OneDrive, My Files List View. Let's pick that apart. we're introducing a new activity column in the OneDrive My Files view. The goal of this feature is to help users stay up to date on the files that they are working on with others by surfacing relevant activity information. We'll show you things, activity like files related to actions such as user comments, edits, sharing, and @mentions, of course. Mysterious activities be gone. You are now more in the know with the new activity column in OneDrive. I have to say, this next one is one that I've been waiting for. A while back, the OneDrive team released the ability to request files, but it was dependent on enabling anonymous links. And our own IT department here with Microsoft IT, like other IT departments, wanted to enable an easy way to request files, but without allowing too much anonymous sharing. And so we now offer Granular Policies for OneDrive request files, which means we are adding new policies to request files and anyone links to better enable customers to configure sharing in their tenant to match their specific needs and scenarios. With this change, customers who have chosen to disable anyone links or anonymous links for OneDrive will now be able to enable anyone links for just the request files feature. Once on, for me, in particular, and I hope for you, I plan to create a link to request files that I can put in my email signature so that anytime someone has a file to share with me, they'll see it in my signature and they can send it to me in a safe fashion, one that arrives in my OneDrive with awareness of who and when. And of course, it stays within Microsoft IT governance and not giving me too much of the capability to overshare in an anonymous fashion. That's a choice, but I also want to be able to receive files and have it land where I then can control that document once it's been sent to me by my request from my signature. Anyway, I think you'll get a real benefit and use out of being able to manage that more granularly. Our last teamwork feature is really a new organizational feature in Office with apps like Word, PowerPoint, and Excel. We've added a quick access Teams and SharePoint document libraries to be showing in Office Win32 Backstage. This is a quick access feature similar to how you think of in Windows, where you have quick access in the File Explorer. The quick access feature will allow users to access shared libraries from both their SharePoint and Teams locations. When the user opens files from shared libraries, these libraries will show up in the form of a list, which will encourage users to save and open files to these libraries with ease, which makes it easier for you to get to your cloud files, and it makes it a lot easier to keep your files in place. So you do those right things to better improve the overall governance of how you manage, or even to the end user, just use your files in the right way. We also think this helps deliver a more consistent, coherent storage location experience across Microsoft 365 apps. So we hope you like that. This is also a feature where we really want to bring the notion of how you open and share, and of course, use your files in a much more consistent way, holistically across Microsoft 365. Let us switch gears again and get into some related technology. Technology that's not too far from the heart of SharePoint and OneDrive, but certainly far enough where it is either a different product or something that is a very different feature, but homed in on the value close to the SharePoint beating heart. The first is one that I've just started to use, and I think you'll really enjoy it, is that you can now, like email, schedule send for Teams chat. As remote teams become more common and spread across multiple time zones, we're introducing the feature that allows you to schedule chat messages to be delivered in the future. With this feature, we can help build better work-life balance and support flexible schedules by scheduling chat messages so that they only deliver during our peers' work hours. All scheduled messages can only be delivered no more than 7 days in the future and cannot be flagged as urgent or important. Inline images and attached files will only be accessible by others in the chat once the message has been delivered. I tried this the other day. It was on the weekend where I had a little time and I wanted to check off a few things. I scheduled a send for Monday so that I didn't disrupt anybody's weekend, but I could also kind of check it off my plate and move on when it came to things that I wanted to communicate. Glad that I could get it done, but I was also glad that I didn't impact other people. The next item is also Teams related. You can now have video clips in Teams chat. This is in preview. Video clips are a new way of working and connecting with coworkers using short video in Teams. Users can capture, send, and playback video messages in chat on all Teams endpoints. Recording is limited to 1 minute across all platforms. It's an easy one to try. If you see it, you'll see it as a button in your chat to be able to either type in something or click, record, and send your nice video voicemail. A little bit more than voice and picture mail. With these last two features, Teams is truly adapting to how people wish to communicate, whether it's delayed or rich with video. Our Teams chats become more flexible to meet us where and when we work, mindful that not everyone works in the same way at the same time. Now, speaking of video clips, have you tried the new Stream mobile app? It's in beta for both iOS and Android. This is a rebuilt Stream mobile app, one that gives you seamless access to Stream Classic and Stream on SharePoint. All the videos, as well as Teams meetings recordings. This app also includes a design refresh, a personalized home feed, and a rich video viewing experience. For me, in testing, I've been catching up on Teams meeting recordings with the Stream mobile beta on my iPhone, and it works great. I see a nice list of recent meetings, click play, and walk and get caught up. With each step, my knowledge grows. It's like a video Fitbit for the enterprise. I often catch up on things like this now when I go out for a nice walk. Taking a break, breathing in, but also getting caught up and using that time to stay effective when it's still kind of within my working hours, at least my working brain. The next one is the PDF connoisseur in us all. It's for you. Now you get the Adobe PDF experience in Microsoft Teams. It's possible now to set Adobe Acrobat as the default app to view and edit PDF files in Microsoft Teams. Once done, all PDF files from the Chat, Channel, and Files app will open directly in Acrobat app within Teams, and no need for an Adobe Acrobat subscription or an Adobe ID to view, search, comment, and annotate PDF files. However, to create, organize, combine, or export a PDF, people need an Adobe Acrobat subscription. There's more details in an FAQ and some great documentation. And of course, if you have any feedback, there's even a distinct feedback channel for this feature. PDFs are super important. We know that a lot of content in Microsoft 365 is of the PDF format. And we want that to be a great experience now, a great experience when you're viewing or working with PDFs inside of Microsoft Teams. This next one is all about Windows 11. If you didn't know, Windows 11 2022 update is now available. And I thought I'd just drain a few things. If you didn't know, if you haven't upgraded yet, sort of that tickler question that's in all of our minds, well, what is it when I upgrade? And I've been playing with it, and I've gotten some benefit in a much cleaner user interface. I think an easier way to set up and configure multiple apps on a screen when you snap from left to right. But I just wanted to share the update is now available for eligible Windows 10 and Windows 11 devices. This is the first major update to Windows 11, offering new important features designed to keep your organization safe in an ever-changing threat landscape without compromising the Windows experience that help end users collaborate. So you should know some of the design goals, be it this version of Windows and ongoing, but specifically with this update, it'll make your PC easier and safer to use for everyone. It empowers people to be more productive. That's the part of really why I'm including it here. Making Windows the best place to connect, create, and play for the life side of us. And of course, delivering added security, management, and flexibility to the workplace, which I do believe carries over to how you interact and use Microsoft 365. So a couple of the new features, one of them is system-wide for accessibility, is much better captions when you're listening to audio content on Windows 11. Whether you're using voice access to access and use Windows 11, this allows you to control your PC and author text using only your voice. And natural voices for narrator. I use this now a lot in Word and sometimes in longer form emails. I'll use that Control H, which takes me right into voice activation, the speech to text. One thing that I've done a lot with the keyboard layout, but as oftentimes I hear from people is not something that they knew or could do easily, is now enhanced with an enhanced snap layouts. This is with the new update, we're making snap layouts more versatile with better touch navigation and the ability to snap multiple browser tabs in Microsoft Edge. So beyond a single app, you can also do it with multiple tabs in Edge. It's one of those things, just grab an app by the top like you're going to move it somewhere, move it towards the top, and you'll see the snap layouts appear, and you get to choose from a lot of pre-configured layout designs and where it goes. It's really nice and intuitive. And again, if you didn't know about this feature or how to use it very easily, I think this enhanced snap layouts makes it a lot more accessible. There are also now focus sessions and do not disturb to help you minimize distractions that pull you away from the task at hand. I use this all the time in Teams, and I'm really pleased to see this come at the Windows layer, where it really does then minimize the distractions for me that come from Windows notifications and elsewhere. Clipchamp, if you heard us talking about it with Microsoft Stream, is now in the box. So with Windows 11, this update, you'll have a nice new tool to make video editing fun and simple for you with templates, effects, and more. It really brings the value of Clipchamp down to the Windows desktop in a more native fashion. And last, there are some enhancements to File Explorer. Again, landing at why we're covering it on this podcast, including bringing tabs to the File Explorer to help you organize your Explorer sessions like you do with Microsoft Edge, so those similarities and patterns are consistent. The new homepage in File Explorer gives you quick access to your favorite and recent files, so you can pin important files for quick and easy access, even including information at a glance of a colleague's actions on your shared files through the power of OneDrive and personalized suggestions based on your Microsoft 365 account. Seeing the cloud power the desktop experience through this new update, and of course a lot of integration work between the teams delivered to you with a much better experience, consistent no matter where you're working and what you're working on. You'll have it closer at your fingertips with a nice enhancement of what File Explorer looks like and how it works for you. Now, I know I've talked about a number of different related technologies, and I'm going to leave you with one last related tech. This is an item that's relevant, a relevant and related tech event full of tech. The real news this month is that the Ignite 2022 session scheduler is open. And specific to areas of interest to the Intrazone audience, we published the Microsoft Ignite 2022 guide to Viva, Syntex, SharePoint, OneDrive, Lists, Stream, Project, and more. Microsoft Ignite is for the learn-it-all in us all. And to help with the Viva, Syntex, SharePoint, OneDrive, List, Planner, Project, Stream, Project, Visio, and more, all the groups are prepping speakers and content as I speak in prep for October 12th through the 14th. They're fired up. They're ready to help dig in to ignite your passion and help you shift into the high learning gear. So just a little bit about this guide, and of course within the guide, a lot about Ignite itself. This guide is filled with related keynotes, breakout sessions, on-demand sessions, and more to help you navigate this subset of content within the whole of Ignite, both digital and on-site at the Seattle Convention Center. I'll keep it up to date. That means that this guide is good before, during, and after Ignite. So I'll have a link in the show notes and of course in the corresponding blog so you can check out this guide. Plus, I'll link to a unique guide for Microsoft 365 admins that my colleague Yana Churakova, she put together, and I think you'll see a lot of value across the two. And I expect a lot more guides to help you in the areas of interest. If you're interested in Viva, Syntex, SharePoint, and more, this guide is for you. And if you're interested in all of that plus, Ignite 2022 is the event for you. It's right around the corner, October 12th through the 14th, 2022. All right, switching our second to last gear, teasers. Let's move on from the event space to the teaser space, a place in this episode that predicts and promotes the future with high certainty. Let's focus on the future that's just around the corner of our calendars. Here are two teasers for what's coming in October 2022. Teaser number one, collaborate in Teams meetings with Excel Live. Now, I bet you saw this as an announcement, and I hope you're excited like I am to be able to actually collaborate in real time on Excel within the meeting as if you're working on an Excel whiteboard. It's really great tech, and it really is a nice integration between Excel and Teams. Teaser number 2, Stream Classic to stream on SharePoint migration tool built over Migration Manager platform, which means when you want to move from one place to the other and you're talking videos, Stream Classic to stream on SharePoint, you do it in the same location as you would migrate other content in the SharePoint Admin Center in a tab we call Migration Manager. That's it with this month's Peek Ahead. We'll share more details and other updates within the SharePoint Roadmap Pit Stop October 2022 edition next month. We've added learn more links per feature, plus a list of important resources in the show notes and in the corresponding blog post on the Microsoft Tech community published to the SharePoint community blog. I hope you've enjoyed this Roadmap Pit Stop. You can pump your brakes, you can toot your horn and share the world all the things that you know. It is time to relax knowing you're all caught up. If anything still leaves you scratching your head, open questions or concerns, please send us your thoughts and comments to theintrozone@microsoft.com. We are here to put our and your best change management foot forward. Thanks for taking that step with us into the cloud month after month. This is Mark Cashman saying Microsoft Ignite is now within 2 weeks on the roadmap ahead.